The Golden Gate Bridge is a suspension bridge spanning the Golden Gate, the 1-mile-wide strait connecting San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean. The structure links the American city of San Francisco, California, the northern tip of the San Francisco Peninsula, to Marin County, carrying both U.S. Route 101 and California State Route 1 across the strait. The bridge is one of the most internationally recognized symbols of San Francisco, California, and the United States. It has been declared one of the wonders of the modern world by the American Society of Civil Engineers. The Frommer Travel Guide describes the Golden Gate Bridge as possibly the most beautiful, certainly the most photographed bridge in the world. It opened in 1937 and was, until 1964, the longest suspension bridge main span in the world, at 4,200 feet. And now a history lesson. Before the bridge was built, the only practical short route between San Francisco and what is now Marin County was by boat across a section of the San Francisco Bay. A ferry service began as early as 1820, with a regularly scheduled service beginning in the 1840s for the purpose of transporting water to San Francisco. The Sausalito Land and Ferry Company service, launched in 1867, eventually became the Golden Gate Ferry Company, a Southern Pacific Railroad subsidiary, the largest ferry operation in the world by the late 1920s. Once for railroad passengers and customers only, Southern Pacific's automobile ferries became very profitable and important to the regional economy. Ferry crossing between the Hyde Street Pier in San Francisco and Sausalito in Marin County took approximately 20 minutes and cost US $1 per vehicle, a price later reduced to compete with the new bridge. The trip from the San Francisco Ferry Building took 27 minutes. Many wanted to build a bridge to connect San Francisco to Marin County. San Francisco was the largest American city still served primarily by ferry boats. Because it did not have a permanent link with communities around the bay, the city's growth was below the national average. Many experts said that a bridge could not be built across the 6,700 feet strait, which had strong swirling tides and currents with water depth of 372 feet at the center of the channel and frequent strong winds. Experts said that ferocious winds and blinding fogs would prevent construction and operation. And now, the conception of the Golden Gate Bridge. Although the idea of a bridge spanning the Golden Gate was not new, the proposal that eventually took hold was made in 1916 San Francisco Bulletin article by former engineering student James Wilkins. San Francisco city engineer estimated the cost at $100 million, which would have been $2.12 billion in 2009, and impractical for the time. He asked bridge engineers whether it could be built for less. One who responded, Joseph Strauss, was an ambitious engineer and a poet who had, for his graduate thesis, designed a 55-mile-long railroad bridge across the Bering Strait. At the time, Strauss had completed some 400 drawbridges, most of which were inland and nothing on the scale of the new project. Strauss's initial drawings were for a massive cantilever on each side of the strait, connected by a central suspension segment, which Strauss promised could be built for $17 million. Local authorities agreed to proceed only on the assurance that Strauss would alter the design and accept input from several consulting project experts. A suspension bridge design was considered the most practical because of recent advances in metallurgy. Strauss spent more than a decade drumming up support in Northern California. The bridge faced opposition, including litigation, from many sources. The Department of War was concerned that the bridge would interfere with ship traffic. The Navy feared that a ship collision or sabotage to the bridge could block the entrance to one of its main harbors. Unions demanded guarantees that local workers would be favored for construction jobs. Southern Pacific Railroad, one of the most powerful business interests in California, opposed the bridge as competition to its ferry fleet and filed a lawsuit against the project, leading to a mass boycott of the ferry service. In May 1924, Colonel Herbert DeCane held the second hearing on the bridge on behalf of the Secretary of War in a request to use federal land for construction. DeCane, on behalf of the Secretary of War, approved the transfer of land needed for the bridge structure and leading roads to the Bridging the Golden Gate Association and both San Francisco County and Marin County, pending further bridge plans by Strauss. Another ally was the fledgling automobile industry, which supported the development of roads and bridges to increase demand for automobiles. The bridge's name was first used when the project was initially discussed in 1917 by M.M. O'Shaughnessy, the city engineer of San Francisco, and Strauss. The name became official with the passing of the Golden Gate Bridge and Highway District Act by the state legislature in 1923, creating a special district to design, build, and finance the bridge. San Francisco and most of the counties along the north coast of California joined the Golden Gate Bridge District, with the exception being Humboldt County, whose residents opposed the bridge construction and traffic it would generate. And now for the design of the Golden Gate Bridge. Strauss was chief engineer in charge of overall design and construction of the bridge project. However, because he had little understanding or experience with cable suspension designs, responsibility for much of the engineering and architecture fell on other experts. Strauss's initial design proposal, two double cantilever spans linked by a central suspension segment, was unacceptable from a visual standpoint. The final graceful suspension design was conceived and championed by Leon Moisseiff, the engineer of the Manhattan Bridge in New York City. Irving Morrow, a relatively unknown residential architect, designed the overall shape of the bridge towers, the lighting scheme, and the Art Deco elements, such as the tower decorations, streetlights, railing, and walkways. The famous international orange color was originally used as a sealant for the bridge. The U.S. Navy had wanted it to be painted black and yellow stripes to ensure visibility by passing ships. Senior engineer Charles Alton Ellis, collaborating remotely with Moisseiff, was the principal engineer on the project. Moisseiff produced the basic structural design, introducing his deflection theory, by which a thin, flexible roadway would flex in the wind, greatly reducing stress by transmitting forces via suspension cables to the bridge towers. Although the Golden Gate Bridge section has proved sound, a later Moisseiff design, the original Tacoma Narrows Bridge, collapsed in a strong windstorm soon after it was completed because of an unexpected aeroelastic flutter. Ellis was also tasked with designing a bridge within a bridge in the southern abutment to avoid the need to demolish Fort Point, a pre-Civil War masonry fortification viewed even then as worthy of historic preservation. He penned a graceful steel arch spanning the fort and carrying the roadway to the bridge's southern anchorage. Ellis was a Greek scholar and mathematician who at one time was a University of Illinois professor of engineering despite having no engineering degree. He eventually earned a degree in civil engineering from the University of Illinois prior to designing the Golden Gate Bridge, and spent the last 12 years of his career as a professor at Purdue University. He became an expert in structural design, writing the standard textbook of the time. Ellis did much of the technical and theoretical work that built the bridge, but he received none of the credit in his lifetime. In November 1931, Strauss fired Ellis and replaced him with a former subordinate, Clifford Payne, ostensibly for wasting too much money sending telegrams back and forth to Moisseiff. Ellis, obsessed with the project and unable to find work elsewhere during the Depression, continued working 70 hours per week on an unpaid basis, eventually turning in 10 volumes of hand calculations. With an eye toward self-promotion and posterity, Strauss downplayed the contributions of his collaborators who, despite receiving little recognition or compensation, are largely responsible for the final form of the bridge. He succeeded in having himself credited as the person most responsible for the design and vision of the bridge. Only much later were the contributions of the others on the design team properly appreciated. In May 2007, the Golden Gate Bridge District issued a formal report on 70 years of stewardship of the famous bridge and decided to give Ellis a major credit for the design of the bridge. And now for the financing of the Golden Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge and Highway District, authorized by an act of the California legislature, was incorporated in 1928 as the official entity to design, construct, and finance the Golden Gate Bridge. However, after the Wall Street crash of 1929, the district was unable to raise the construction funds, so it lobbied for a $30 million bond measure. The bonds were approved in November 1930 by votes in the counties affected by the bridge. The construction budget at the time of approval was $27 million. However, the district was unable to sell the bonds until 1932, when Amadeo Gianni, the founder of the San Francisco-based Bank of America, agreed on behalf of his bank to buy the entire issue in order to help the local economy. And now for the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge. Construction began on January 5, 1933. The project cost more than $35 million, completing ahead of schedule and $1.3 million under budget. The Golden Gate Bridge construction project was carried out by McClintic Marshall Construction Company, a subsidiary of Bethlehem Steel Corporation, founded by Howard H. McClintic and Charles D. Marshall, both of Lehigh University. Strauss remained head of the project, overseeing day-to-day construction and making some groundbreaking contributions. A graduate of the University of Cincinnati, he placed a brick from his alma mater's demolished McKinnon Hall in the South Anchorage Point before the construction was poured. He innovated the use of movable safety netting beneath the construction site, which saved the life of many otherwise unprotected ironworkers. Of 11 men killed from falls during construction, 10 were killed on February 17, 1937, when the bridge was near completion when the net failed under the stress of a scaffold that had fallen. The workers' platform that was attached to a rolling hanger on the track collapsed when the bolts that were connected to the track were too small. The amount of weight was too great to bear. The platform fell into the safety net, but was too heavy, and then it gave way. 2 out of the 12 workers survived the 200-foot fall into the icy waters, including the 37-year-old foreman, Slim Lambert. 19 others, who were saved by the net over the course of the construction, became members of the Hull Way to Hell Club. The project was finished and opened on May 27, 1937. The Bridge Roundhouse Diner was then included in the southeastern end of the Golden Gate Bridge, adjacent to the Tourist Plaza, which was renovated in 2012. The Bridge Roundhouse, an Art Deco design by Alfred Fanilla, completed in 1938, has been popular throughout the years as a starting point for various commercial tours of the bridge and an unofficial gift shop. The diner was renovated in 2012, and the gift shop was then removed as a new official gift shop has been included in the adjacent plaza. During the bridge work, the Assistant Civil Engineer of California, Alfred Fanilla, has overseen the entire ironwork of the bridge, as well as half of the bridge's roadwork. With the death of Jack Ballestory in April 2012, all workers involved in the original construction are now deceased.